is now the part of the term where we're going to work on our first essay, which is a literary analysis essay, which I know might be a new type of essay for you. For this type of essay, you're really looking at choosing a piece of literature and analyzing it for its deeper meanings. I encourage you, if you haven't already, once you choose which story and topic you're going to write about, go into that feedback that I provided you for each of your literature analysis assignments and watch the video that I provided in that feedback related to that story. That will help you, I think, ground your analysis for this essay. All right. So for this essay, you have four options for what to write about. Option one asks you to look at internal conflict of a character in either 10 Things or Muddling. So in 10 Things, our protagonist, the narrator, is a grieving widow who is struggling with the guilt she feels for cheating on her husband, as well as the grief that comes with losing someone at all, but also in this unexpected fashion in the way that she lost her husband. So in your essay, if you chose to write about 10 things, you would focus on that conflict within her, and you would want to include in your analysis the price she pays as part of the resolution and what lesson she has learned. This is going to be the literary conflict of self versus self. For Muddling, we're with Finley K, and he is struggling with paranoia and the guilt he feels for ruining his relationship with his wife and also fathering the child that he did with his mistress. So he's really learning to take accountability for his actions. In fact, both of these characters are. So you can choose either of these stories to talk about internal conflict. So that's self versus self. Your second option has to do with symbolism. For this, you can use the story Honey Boy and talk about how the author uses a symbol to convey an important message to the reader. In your essay, you'll focus on the symbol, what it symbolizes, and how the writer conveys the message to the reader and how that message affects the reader. You can choose one overarching symbol, or if you wanted to, you could choose more than one symbol. However, I would encourage you not to choose more than two symbols. For option three, you can choose Honey Boy, Muddling, or 10 Things. And in this prompt, you're being asked to identify the primary theme of the story. To be clear, you need to make sure you have correctly identified the theme. Feel free to email me and say, hey, I'm writing about 10 things. This is what I think the theme is. I just want to make sure I'm on the right track. Then you're going to write an analysis essay exploring how the author develops that theme through either the setting, characters, or literary conflict. You may recall that prompt one allows you to write about self versus self. However, with this topic, you could choose self versus man. So this could be our main character versus another character, an actual person, or self versus society. So that's going to be our main character versus the world around him. To be clear, you will not need to address each of these elements. So you are not going to write an essay that focuses on setting, characters, and conflict. You are only going to choose one, setting, characters, or conflict, and talk about how the writer develops the theme that you have identified. And then option number four allows you to write about the things they carried. And what it says is the things they carried presents readers with a realistic look at the effects of the Vietnam War. In an essay, discuss how the writer explores the effects of war on soldiers and or their families. When writing your essay, consider how literary conflict, self versus man, or self versus society, is both developed and resolved, and what message the writer is presenting. So again, three of these four prompts, you're really having the opportunity to look at literary conflict and how the characters are conflicted, either within themselves, with another person, or with society at large. However, you do have the option of writing about symbolism if you wanted to write about Honey Boy. An important note, for each body paragraph, you must choose specific quotes and passages from the story to support your claims, but you need to avoid excessive plot summary. Sometimes students think the literary analysis is meant to retell the story and its plot. That is not your goal here. You're analyzing specific elements and trying to determine what they mean, why they're important. You want to avoid retelling the story. You should assume Your reader has read the story, so there's no need to tell the reader this is exactly what happens. Now, to be clear, when you provide an example, you might say this happens and then that happens and this is what it means, but you won't go this happened in the story first and then second and then so on and so forth. When we look at the sample essay, you'll get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Basic requirements. You're required at least 1,000 words, not including your header, heading, titles, citations, or works cited page. There's a 1,500 word maximum. If you get to word 1,500, please understand that when I'm reading, I stop reading at 1501. So do not go over 1,500 words. You are required 6 total paragraphs, an intro, 4 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. You will need a thesis statement that clearly presents your analytical argument regarding the work and that fully addresses the prompt. Remember that a thesis statement should have a clear topic, position, and rationale. All body paragraphs will include topic sentences that demonstrate a clear relationship with the thesis and a provable point that will be proven through at least 2 pieces of evidence from the story. When I say 2 pieces of evidence, I'm talking about 2 short quotes from the story. Short quotes are 3 lines or shorter of text. Then I provided you some documents and information on quoting, summarizing, and paraphrasing, MLA format, third person point of view. This is an important thing. When you are writing formally, generally we use third person. So he, she, it, they. No I, me, we, my, you, your. And then you're going to use the literary present tense, which means that you are writing in present tense, not past tense. It feels a little bit unnatural to write about present tense, but think about the story as happening in real time. Finally, you'll want to make sure you proofread and edit carefully. I provided you a sample essay. This is student work. I have not edited it in any way because I believe that would be unethical, but this is a good paper. It did earn an A, and it's about a story that you guys in this class have not read, but you'll get the gist of what this paper should look like. First and foremost, it's set up in MLA format. And then the writer starts with his introductory paragraph. He says, as we grow older, it is human nature to try to hold on to childhood values that guided us into adulthood. Edna St. Vincent Millay said, childhood is the kingdom where nobody dies. That ignorance is a part of innocence, and the sense of innocence and freedom we have as children tends to evolve as we grow older, often into regret, guilt, or shame. Because of this, it is only natural to try and hold on to something as totemistic way of preserving the innocence that's gradually lost. In The Red Convertible by Louise Erdrich, readers follow the story of Henry and Lyman, 2 brothers whose relationship is founded on the joy they have as young adults, which gradually deteriorates as they transition into manhood. When Henry returns from war, Lyman attempts to salvage their relationship, but to no avail. Erdrich uses the physical object of the red convertible to symbolize the freedom, innocence, and brotherhood in Henry and Lyman's relationship, leaving readers with the notion that gradual loss of innocence is an inevitable part of growing up, and once it's gone forever. Okay. So a couple of things are going very nicely in this paragraph. It starts broad with this commentary on childhood innocence, and then it narrows down to the story. There's a brief 2-sentence summary of the story that just gets to the gist of it. Then we have a strong thesis statement that talks about how it's using a physical object. So this is, if you're looking at your options above, this would be a person who's writing about symbolism. So it has this thesis about the red convertible. It tells us what it symbolizes and to what end. In other words, it's not simply that it's a symbol for these things, but it's leaving readers with the notion. This is the thing you want to make sure your thesis is doing. It's not simply saying this story uses this symbol to symbolize this, but this is the impact it has on the reader. That impact on the reader is the key to writing an effective literary analysis essay. A couple of things that could be improved in this paragraph. First and foremost, we start with the use of first person point of view, which is something that we should not be doing. However, this student does it. If you were to go into first person, it makes sense anecdotally in this paragraph. But again, you're supposed to be in third person point of view. While this student did not lose major points for this, typically we avoid going into first person point of view in these types of essays. Additionally, at times there's some clunky wording or the occasional misused comma, but overall, strong introductory paragraph. Now we're going to get into the first body paragraph. It says, as the story begins, Erdrich shows readers that the red convertible represents Henry and Lyman's freedom and innocence. Notice here that there is a claim being made that the author is showing readers what the car represents. It's not simply saying the story begins with the brothers buying a car. That would be a statement of fact. This provides an analytical point. Then it goes into Erdrich states some people hang on to details when they travel, but we didn't let that bother us, and we lived our everyday lives here to there. Notice that the student has integrated the quote. It's not a drop quote, so there's a lead in with a signal word, states. It also includes an in-text citation and quotation marks around the quote. So here we're having our first piece of evidence introduced. Now our writer is going to explain. Readers get the sense that the brothers are living in the moment, employing the car as their vehicle, both literally and figuratively. This affords them the freedom to travel wherever and whenever they wish, without worrying about the subtle details of where they are going, why they are going there, or how long it will take them to get there. This blissful ignorance gives readers the sense that the brothers proceed with careless fortitude, invigorated by their ability to travel freely. Often, within the ignorance of freedom, there comes an inclination to turn a blind eye to the things that may be detrimental to the overall goal of living in the moment, which is not lost on the brothers. All right, so notice here, we have about 2 lines from the story. So we need to have 4 to 6 lines explaining it. Remember, it's that 2 to 3 times rule on evidence to explanation. The explanation should be the bulk of your paragraph. Your voice should be the bulk of the paragraph, not the example. Then he moves into his next example. When Lyman reveals, we made most of the trip that summer without putting up the car hood at all, it is clear to readers that the brothers have no intention of confronting anything that may stand in the way of their journey through life. By avoiding the possibility of identifying any mechanical problems with their beloved red convertible, they can continue to pursue the open possibilities that strengthen their brotherhood, a brotherhood that's supported by their combined ownership of the red convertible. Now, keep in mind that the topic sentence said that we're being shown that the red convertible represents freedom and innocence. And here we're seeing how freedom is being represented through their inability or their ability to go from wherever they'd like to, from one place to the next, and their innocence. They're not putting up that car hood at all. They're not looking at what mechanical issues there may be. They are just operating kind of as they please without any restraint. This is supporting the thesis. Our topic sentence is clearly related because we see freedom and innocence right here in that thesis statement. Notice that some of the language that is used in the thesis statement is mirrored in the topic sentence, but it's not the exact same information. Now we're going to get into body paragraph 2. As the story progresses, readers see several indicators that the purchase and ownership of the red convertible strengthen Henry and Lyman's bond as brothers. So we're going to see how the car is impacting their brotherhood. If we go up to our thesis statement, brotherhood is going to be our very next thing here that is mentioned. So in our paragraph, our writer gets right into the evidence. Erdrich begins to unveil this notion with the line, "Then before we thought it all over, the car belonged to us and our pockets were empty." Readers see that as brothers, there is no hesitation in their decision to purchase car. This implies that they are united in their belief that the car represents freedom and that freedom outweighs the outcome of financial instability. This displays that Henry and Lyman have an unspoken bond, which does not require each other's agreement and is almost telepathic. There is also significance in the color of the car, as hinted by Erdrich stating, and of course, it was red, a red Olds. The color red indicates that the brothers are bonded to the car and with each other by blood. Erdrich drip feeds this notion to readers, as on the surface, it's not so obvious. As the story continues, the theory only bolsters the two boys' connection. Readers also see early on that neither brother claims ownership of the car or themselves. Lyman declares, I always thought of it as his car while he was gone, even though when he left, he said, now it's yours, and threw me his key. This passage presents the idea that the brothers do not fully view the car as their own and see it more as a collective, with ownership bouncing from one to the other. This indicates to readers that the symbolism of brotherhood the car represents is deeply rooted in Henry and Lyman's relationship. Eldritch uses this symbolism to set the stage for the turmoil that is to come. Again, we're seeing here our writers using 3 different examples, but mostly he's explaining what the examples mean in the context of the story. He's not simply retelling the story. Instead, he's providing context that makes the story meaningful to his reader of his essay. Our next paragraph says, the dynamic of the brothers' relationship changes when Henry returns from war. As readers see that Lyman struggles to connect with his brother. He uses the red convertible to try to save their relationship. So here's a 2-sentence topic sentence, which generally we want to avoid, but works okay here. We can make the occasional exception, but generally you only want your topic sentences to be 1 sentence. If we go back to our thesis statement, we see that we get into this idea of that gradual loss of innocence and its effect on growing up. So we're really going to get into that in this paragraph. Eldritch describes that Lyman believes the car might bring the old Henry back somehow. Lyman feels the investment that they have made in the past with the red convertible may be the catalyst needed to reignite the values that once existed in their relationship. This is a common tactic employed by desperate individuals to try and hang on to the thing they believe can keep the values of their youth and their essence of their youth from slipping away. So here we see our writer is working to get at this idea of growing up, losing innocence. Lyman states, one night, Henry was off somewhere. I took myself a hammer. I went out to that car and I did a number on its underside. Readers see this as an attempt by Lyman to salvage what is left of a fleeting brotherhood. When this initially works and Henry shows interest in the car, it gives Lyman false hope, temporarily affirming his belief that the car is the bedrock of their relationship. However, as with the concept of holding on to one's innocence, Henry's decision to end his life in the river inevitably destroys Lyman's hope. So we're really getting into how this brotherhood has been shaken by Henry having been active in the Vietnam War, and how this is creating a loss of innocence and a loss of brotherhood. When Lyman decides to push the car into the river as a reaction to his brother drowning, Eldritch uses the car as a symbol to convey to the reader that Lyman realizes his brother is gone, along with his innocence. Eldritch's statement that the wire short out, it's all finally dark, is paramount to Lyman's realization that what's done is done. Readers understand that for Lyman, there is no turning back, and that the childhood innocence and freedom the brothers shared have shorted out, like the wiring of the red convertible. This is another example of symbolism that Eldritch utilizes to reinforce the theory that you cannot get back what is lost. After Henry is gone, Lyman describes the detachment he feels about a picture he took with his brother. He states, that picture, I never look at it anymore. Eldritch shows readers that Lyman is struggling with his new reality and in a way accepts that his brother is gone and his life will never be the same. By avoiding a moment of confrontation with his feelings, he is resigned to the fact that the innocence and freedom he once shared with Henry is too at the bottom of the river. So here we see we're really wrapping up this final point in the thesis statement, which is that we're leaving readers with the notion that the gradual loss of innocence is an inevitable part of growing up. And once it's gone forever. We're seeing Lyman come to the understanding that his innocence is gone, his childhood is gone, and his brother is gone. Then finally, we're going to have a concluding paragraph. Louise Eldritch uses the symbolism of the red convertible to parallel the evolution of the relationship between Henry and Lyman, founded on the values of freedom, brotherhood, and innocence. When Lyman attempts to save the relationship by damaging the convertible, readers see a momentary change in Henry that inspires hope in Lyman. Ultimately, readers are faced with the fact that the principles that the red convertible symbolizes are gone forever, and so too is Henry. It is only fitting that Lyman pushes the car into the river after Henry drowned, realizing that, after all, the car does belong to Henry, allowing Eldritch to convey the idea that once innocence is gone forever. So what we're seeing here is a nice kind of recap of what's been talked about, as well as pushing forward, answering that question of, so what? Why is this important? And it's really getting at this idea that our character realizes that the car is no longer his. And just like innocence, once it's gone forever. Then we have a nice works cited page. For this essay, you are only using your brain, and generally the story, our writer here did use that quote from Edna St. Vincent Millay, so that had to be cited as well. But he did not use any outside sources other than the story, which is the expectation here as well. I hope going over both the guidelines of this essay as well as the sample essay helps you to understand this topic. I know this is a long video, but I hope that it helps you better understand the assignment. If you have any questions or need help, please let me know.